I was actually sitting right in this space. Our daughter came down and she said, "Mommy, Daddy's on the floor." So I was like, "Is he joking?" Thinking he's joking, right? And I said, "Mommy, no, something's wrong. You got to come right now." I'll never forget Carl doing compressions. And I was like, this isn't how our story can end.
Welcome to the BODi Experience, where we share simple hacks, like real hacks that people use to lose weight, get in shape, and feel great. And you're going to wish that you knew some of these things sooner, like how to navigate real life, the real changing of the seasons and your own personal seasons, and still stay on track, get results, and feel good. We're all coming up on summer when you want to feel good in your own skin. And for many of us, I know for me, I actually like to have a personal project, something new that I'm going to try and focus on for my health for the summer. Like I always make one project, a program that I'm going to do. And I focus on that for these months that, schedules get weird. The kids are out of school and all that. So, you heard of hot girl summer. Well, I know I'm never going to qualify for that. So we're calling it feel good summer because I want to feel good. Anyway, we got a guest on the BODi Experience today who's also going to help us feel good. And she's going to benefit anybody who's busy, who feels like you're trying to do everything, all the right things, but maybe you're just at this point uncomfortable in your own skin, or maybe you know somebody who's like that. So from Canada, please welcome to the BODi Experience, Kim Fitzpatrick. Hi, Kim.
Hey, Carl. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
It's so great to have you here. Now, I don't want to tell your story. I want you to tell your story.
Okay.
What was going on as you were navigating your early 40s? Well, I will tell one part of your story. You've been a customer since 2005.
Yep.
You've been a partner in our Team BODi network since, would you say, 2013?
2015. So just
2015.
10 years.
Okay. But maybe the last 18 to 24 to 36 months have been a little turbulent for you as you entered your early 40s.
Yes.
So why don't you start us there and tell us where you were, what was going on, and what happened?
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Carl. Okay, so a couple of things. So, it actually started about like 5 years ago for me when things really happened with my family. And we had a kind of what we call a capital T trauma happen. Everyone's great and healed and growing from that. But I suffered as, a first responder and, a mom and someone that was, I deeply feel. And what I found is that the more that I was trying to heal through past traumas, not just things that had happened for me back in 2019, but also things that had happened for me in my life prior to that. And I went through a season of intense discovery and revelations and, where I needed more rest and more recovery. And I was feeling closer to not feeling as much of myself. I felt like I was competing with, wanting to feel really, really good. But I also knew that I wasn't feeling as good as I could. And I didn't exactly know what was going on. I was trying to do all the things that I always did. But if I'm honest with you, I know that there was always times where I would either maybe sabotage myself, or I would let my emotions run wild, or I would let my trauma take hold of where I was because it just felt better sometimes to numb out. And what I mean by numbing out is I mean by overindulging or binge watching TV instead of getting to bed. And that all compounds in your life. I also found that the busier I became, I would forget to eat. I have to set alarms on my on my phone to make sure that I'm fueling my body properly. And I came to this, I'm in my 40s, I'm entering into my 44th year, and I just can't get back on track with a few good decisions anymore. It takes what felt like weeks to recover from a weekend. And my recovery time was really delayed. And the more that I've leaned into figuring out what I need, that came down to my nutrition, that came down to my recovery, that came down to my movement, and the things that used to work for me didn't anymore.
Now, I have to stop you. We're going to rewind a little bit. obviously you need to do what you're comfortable with, but you dropped trauma 4 or 5 times in that little intro.
Yeah.
And I got to ask, can you give me any insight into what you're talking about?
Yeah, totally. For sure. So my life has been so blessed, honestly, and it also has come with heartache and loss and grief. I lost my mom when I was 11 months old. She chose to have me instead of aborting her pregnancy. And she was sick with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was her third little girl. And my parents chose to keep me rather than treatment. And my mom passed 11 months after I was born. And, I felt very conflicted, almost what felt like my entire life, trying to figure out how loved I was, how seen I was. And I spent a lot of my life trying to stay out of trouble, what it felt like for me, and just really trying to figure out who I was. And with that came a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress and a lot of frustration and a lot of, if you were better behaved, you'd be easier to love. And a lot of stuff came with that you don't just leave in your childhood. You don't just leave that enoughness when you're told that you're not. And I think a lot of that came into how I treated myself and how I loved myself. And I had to reparent myself, Carl. Like when I became a mom, and it's so cool to watch some of the videos back where Tess was like little doing workouts with me from the beginning. Like it makes
That's your daughter?
Yeah, that's our daughter, Tessa and Colby. Like when Colby was born, we were doing P90X in our basement. Like I've grown up with BODi. I've grown up and so have they. And this has been something that helped me to reparent myself where I knew, hey, you not taking care of yourself isn't a priority. Isn't an option now. It's a priority. You are now a parent, and the struggles you've had and what you've come, and you tell these stories to yourself, Carl, of why it's okay that you treat yourself this way. And at some point we have to, what's our dialogue, right? We are only as strong as our strongest thought. And I didn't want to be a victim anymore.
It's easy to just say, oh, so I was doing P90X, and you're a smart person and you and Jamie have done well for yourselves. So you can afford to go to a gym or get a trainer. So I don't want to just run over that. Why was this model valuable to you, and how did it manage to work into your life, particularly in a life that you're still healing from stuff?
I love that question. Okay, Carl, I've always been a VHS girl. So like I was the mom with friends where we'd go through Walmart and we'd go get Jillian Michaels DVDs together, and then we'd text each other when we were done, even if it took us like as long as it took us to get our workouts done. And that's when I found, right? Then I really got into, even though I'd been a client since 2005, Colby was born in 2009. I came back home to that. Right. So I just kind of kept reinventing myself. And so for me, it was like, oh, cool. What's this? Right. What's this next thing? And I fell so in love with it. For me, Colby, I wasn't able to just go to the gym because I was in the spin class, and 8 minutes in, I'd be hearing, where's Colby's mom? Because he'd be in the daycare and he just didn't settle. So it wasn't an option for me to go have this relaxing, leisurely time. I spent a lot of my postpartum time, if I wanted to get some movement in, holding my baby, putting them down, playing with them. And it took maybe an hour and a half to get my workout done, but I could do that at home. And I at least felt somewhat of success where I could pause it and tend to their needs, pause it, tend to their needs, pause it, tend to their needs. And that's not for everybody, but it was for me, especially after I couldn't even get through a spin class without being called. That just was defeating. I was like, well, I might as well just leave.
I'm sure it's not for everybody, but it's for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anybody who's busy, and I don't know anybody who's not busy, quite honestly. But just the drive time to the gym is my gym time. So unless I can work out while I'm driving, it's not going to be effective. Now, so you're a part of the ecosystem for 7-8 years, and then this opportunity comes along. What made you decide to sort of professionalize this and make it something that could actually also generate an income?
That's a great question. So, Carl, I want to tell you at the end of the DVDs and the VHS, there were all these people that used to huddle together with their lanyards on. And I guess that was Summit. And I had no idea what these videos were at the end. If I'm honest with you, Carl, I didn't know what the network was. I didn't understand there was a business that was an opportunity to this. I do remember I've been a devoted client of I love it. I will always use their products. I have had Shakeology for as long as it's in Canada. And I remember, Carl, one time getting a letter from, I guess would have been my coach. And I had no idea that I got a coach that came with this. So if I'm honest with you, when I started Beachbody, I didn't really pay attention to that. But I did see these people very happy at the end of these videos. And I was like, what is that? What's going on? And maybe I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the interest. I just wasn't paying attention. And it was actually Jamie that found out that there was a business opportunity linked to BODi. And I'm so thankful. He was the entrepreneur, Carl. And I was like, well, I'm working in my corporate world. I don't have any more time for this. But if you want to go ahead and do this, because, Carl, to be honest, we were living paycheck to paycheck. We weren't getting out of debt. I thought everything was fine and we would be amazing. And then all of a sudden, everything we had and built was taken away from us. We went down to a 1-car garage. Everything was in my name. Like, it was a really scary time. And, so for me, stability and being an employee, like, that's all I knew. All I've known is being an employee, and I loved it. I loved my corporate job. I loved my career. So for me, when this first started, I was excited that was something Jamie could take a hold of, because if I'm honest, I felt scared because I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. I've been an employee, so to speak, in the very best way since I was 13, working multiple jobs. I've never had to go do my own thing. So when Jamie found this idea, I was excited. I was like, this is great. This is what my husband's doing, because that felt safer. Right. That felt safer to me. And it was exciting. Carl, I'll never forget. This makes me emotional. I'll never forget when he got his first paycheck. And it was $153. And we didn't have to put going out for dinner with our family on the credit card. And I was like, oh, but this is a real thing. Like, you're helping people. And this is helping our family. And it felt like a breath. It felt like a breath for the first time in a long time when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're just asking, is this it? Like, is this how we're going to keep living out this life? And just having that little bit of breath in the weekly paycheck helped. And I'll never forget that. And what got me into this, Carl, what brought me into this business wasn't the income. It was the community. And it was everything I didn't know I needed. So Jamie started the business out of need for his family. And because we knew that we couldn't keep going. We wouldn't have been able to save and figure this out. Sure, maybe down the road we would have, but we needed something else, which resulted in either one of us getting part-time jobs. And this beautifully came into our laps and into our lives because it's been something we'd been doing. We loved the programs. We loved the community. We loved the products. Now, what I was missing was accountability. And what I was missing was understanding. And I'll never forget my program that I signed up with was seeing Autumn on an infomercial with those containers. And nutrition was my biggest, I would say, opportunity, because I was a habit of missing meals or stress. Like, just like I shared, I didn't take good enough care about myself. But most importantly, I wasn't educating myself on how I needed to fuel my body. So I started to fuel my body. And I signed up with this program and I loved it. I learned the ins and outs of how to balance my macronutrients without counting all these things, but having these colored containers. And I started to notice that I was like answering questions for people in our little chat we had. And, our friends and my siblings came in and we were all getting literally healthier together. And I was like, this is fun. Like, sign me up for this.
How did that affect your ability to stay consistent with the whole thing? Like, it sounds like you've prioritized exercise and nutrition through your own trial and error. Did you have any problem staying consistent, or has it always been sort of natural for you?
No, it's never been natural. I was the on again, off again. Like I would be like, I'm starting on Monday. I would eat everything in the pantry on Sunday night. It was not a cycle that I'm proud to share, but it was my truth. And it felt like this yo-yo. It was an identity. It was part of an identity. I thought that like that was just the way it was, and on again, off again, on again, off again. And what this brought to me was consistency. This brought to me the fact that I wasn't just being accountable to myself, but I was being accountable to other people. So in fact, when I started being a partner and coaching back then, I actually realized my own accountability went up because I had no one to be accountable before when I was by myself. I mean, try being accountable to insanity. Those were awful. I was like, I don't have to do sweat intervals today. I'm fine. Right. But if you're taking a sweaty selfie and you're connecting in with a group, you're not missing the programs because they're hard.
Let's put that in perspective, because I know, no story is a straight line. So you found some income, you find some accountability, get things on track, got community. And then a few years ago, the unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us that story.
Yeah. So I was actually sitting right in this space, Carl, and our daughter came down and I heard the door creaking and she said, "Mommy, Daddy's on the floor." And I was like, oh, I was doing a call. So I was like, is he joking? Thinking he's joking, right? And I said, "Mommy, no, something's wrong. You got to come right now." And he had been having issues with his heart and having issues for about 4 months. And he was cleared 4 weeks prior to what I found. He was cleared completely. He was good. Everything was great. He was go for it. And this is one of the other layers of trauma that I was referring to earlier in the podcast, is that my husband, Jamie, he suffered a cardiac arrest, a widowmaker at our home. And Tessa found him and she came and got me. I was here. I ran upstairs and I gave 8 minutes of CPR while waiting for the paramedics to come and get support. And, he survived and he's here and he's healed. And it is an absolute miracle. They literally saved him in this home. And, Tessie's doing great and Colby's doing great. And they've recovered well because Jamie's recovered well. But that's something where, I'll never forget Carl doing compressions. And I was like pleading with God. I was like, I'll never talk badly about myself again. I'll stop. You negotiate everything. You just lay it on the line. And you're like, everything you think you've ever had, it was just Jamie and I, and every pump for pump, I was just negotiating. I was like, this isn't how our story can end. So the only way for this to go is for a miracle and for God's work and for someone else to take over this. And I did. I went on a story and said, just please pray. Like, just pray. And I didn't say anything else of what was happening. I just said, you just need to pray. And I'll never forget that. And, one of my girlfriends, she said, we stormed the gates. And that felt so powerful. And, Carl, it was this community, that just stopped and prayed and said, what can I do? What can we help? How can we get there? People showed up at the hospital. Like, it was just an overwhelming amount of prayer or thoughts or emotion or something. And it helped. Like, everyone, including yourself, was like, where are you at? What do you need? And how can we help you? And to me, that's family.
Again, that'll rock your world. And everything that is a good habit and life, business as usual, as they say, just gets rocked. And, it was like your own mini pandemic, if you will. And so you go through that, you go through the pandemic, and you found yourself, 43 or 42, and things weren't feeling right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where were you at?
It's interesting. So I was finishing a course and it was July of 2023. I certainly did everything that I could, but I wouldn't say that I really had the autonomy with my own self where I knew that if something was injuring my body, like it was hurting me to eat some things I was eating. And, I was so grateful because right when I came back from that course in San Francisco, and I kind of drew my line in the sand for the 78th time, because like you said, it's not linear. As a world, we've gone through stuff, right? There's been a pandemic. Nobody's immune to hard ever. And I just was like, okay, that's it. If I really want to be this next version of myself, if I really want to grow into wherever I'm going to take this big life and this career and how I want to coach and how I want to show up and how I want to serve, well, then I need to keep the promises to myself all the time. And last July in 2023, I was asked to be a part of we used gut protocol, and it was the 4 weeks for everybody super block. And it absolutely helped me so much. Autumn's my girl. And those have been, I love absolutely all of the super trainers, but for me, that is what I needed in that moment. And it was really serendipitous, because when I first took this like kind of oath, if you will, or this pact to really, work on myself, that was back in 2015. And that's when I went all in, and I got to come back home to that. And I started to see changes, and I started to feel better. And I just realized that I just got out of the habit of doing the things that worked really well for me. And I was like, how human of me, right? You can't be perfect all the time. You're not just going to have this perfect thing. But as I came back home to really identifying the nutrition that served me and making sure that I was fueling my body well and the movements that served me, and I noticed that I needed more. I can't wait for Body Lava that's coming out this year. Like, what I noticed is I needed more restorative and nervous system, and like really leaning into me. I love weights, but I love Pilates, and I love low impact, and I love steady state. And what I'm loving, and this is the thing that the platform has grown, what I always say, it's grown with me, the mindset, like the growth day. I needed all of that, and it's really helped me. It's healed me. And that's when I made a decision, honestly, Carl. I would say that's when if you think of transformation, I feel like I've been in this evolution of transformation. I've been almost with this company like for 20 years. That's amazing. And I just love to give myself permission that you're allowed to evolve as many times as you need and have as many iterations. But I'm most proud of who I've become.
Yeah.
And since last year.
It's so impressive, but it's fascinating to me. I just want to double click into the 4 weeks for everybody, 4-week gut protocol experience, because, okay, so if that's last year, that's basically 10-ish years into your journey with us. You know everything. You know the container program, and yet here's a catalyst for you to bring it back. And in 4 weeks. And what always is amazing to me is it's not like it's a mystery. It's not like it's a mystery like, oh, I need to dial this in for 4 weeks to get myself back on the rails. Like, I experienced this too. This is why I said at the beginning, like, I always make myself have a project for the summer so that I don't just let it go and I get to the end of the summer and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in worse shape than I started the summer because I didn't really organize myself. Describe, because a lot of people don't really know what the business model that we run is. You think, I'll get the subscriptions, just like joining the gym, and I'll figure it out, right? But this is prescriptive, and it's got a day one, and it's got a final day, whatever it's 21 days, 4 weeks, 60 days, whatever. Describe how that can transform your life in 4 weeks, because I think that's a big deal for somebody who's already been around for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it was a decision, right? I just recommitted to the decision, Carl. And I just kept making these decisions that built me closer to the version of me and how I wanted to feel. I'm just proud I didn't, I hit rock bottom in November of 2022. And I felt like I spent kind of the first 7 months of 2023 just like figuring out who I was and surviving, if you will. And then I made a decision to thrive. So if I'm honest with you, it really took me just almost what felt like a week to start feeling better. And I felt like, I felt like crap.
It's okay.
And a week later, I'm like, I feel so much better. My energy's better. My sleep is better. I don't feel as uncomfortable. At no point did I feel like I was being restricted or that this was feeling hard. It was like, what a gift I get to figure out what feeling my best feels like. And how I can do that through this modality is a gift. And it's so neat to be able to change over the last 20 years, 10 years as a business partner.
I think people, outsiders don't, it's really fascinating. And even insiders, CEO included, you sometimes take for granted what this business model is. Like, so I did Power 90, I did P90X, I did 21 Day Fix, I did 21 Day Fix Extreme. So how can I continue to learn or continue to find ways to sort of recover within this ecosystem when I know better now? But I think what the people who sort of judge, they don't give us the benefit of, we're human too. And life changes constantly. So you're learning constantly. And even a 4-week program can come along and remind you of what it takes to get results and what it takes to have a discipline and change your discipline slightly. Now, so I wonder, as a partner, you both experience the product as a user, but you also see what works and what doesn't work for people. Why do you think this approach of a program with a particular beginning and an end, why do you think that works for people in such a powerful way?
Well, I think it gives us a time to get excited. One of the things I love to do within my client group is we have focuses every month. So I get really attached to themes and things that, like you said, a project, right? Because we lose interests as human, right? If it just becomes this, well, this is just what I do every day, it almost becomes very mundane. Now, one of the things I would say that I really try to teach, and I've really embodied, learned this from Andy Frisella, is how to master the mundane. And when you can learn how to master the mundane, you start to realize that the mundane, right, which is fueling your body intentionally and moving your body intentionally, and doesn't mean you need to do the same thing every time or every day, but it's like starting to master the mundane are actually those high performance habits that are going to yield you the life you're wanting to create. But if we keep giving up on that and we keep not focusing on that, that is where I think we can go a little bit awry, where we just feel like we're failing. But what if you don't look at this as failing? What if you think of this as human? Hey, you're not on a wagon, so you can't fall off track. You just start doing it again. It's like, it's all data. We don't do that anymore. The shame that comes around, Carl, this thinking of the failure. What I love about the 30 days is kind of like these little surges of, okay. And it's not necessarily a thing like I'm going all in and I'm white knuckling. What I love to consider of is like, how can I refine me this week? Because if you're refining, it's something you already have inside of you, right? Yeah. Like you already know how to do the movements. You know how to not snooze your button. You know how to do all that. And again, this comes down to this beautiful refinement. And that's one thing I love about this business is it gives me the opportunity to be a better mom, to be a better parent, to be a better wife, to be a better friend, to learn how to heal through stuff and parent me. I'm still trying to figure out, who Kim 4.4 is, right? And we should be called in levels. But that's what I believe this business gifts you, is an opportunity for you to say, hey, I wasn't as proud of that decision I made last night, eating my peanut butter and chocolate chips in the dark at 11 o'clock with my dog looking at me, but I'm going to move forward tomorrow, because that just doesn't match the identity of who I'm wanting to become.
So Kim, it's, I've said this to you before, and we've celebrated you on stage at Summit, you and Jamie, and you've been incredible advocates for what we do, and truly inspirational members of a community and defining members of an ecosystem or a business model that is, I think, poised to make a even more dramatic impact on the world. We've got, 25% of the adult population in North America is considered inactive. 70% of the population is considered overweight or obese. So we clearly have a lot of work to do and a lot of people that we can help. To close this out today, what are you saying to people who maybe feel hopeless, who don't have the attitude or the initiative that you do to seek it out for themselves, and they need a catalyst? How are you helping them get started on something that just looks too easy and it costs too little to have this big of an impact on your life, yet it works. So how do you get them off the fence and into action?
Well, I love that question, Carl. I think at the end of the day, it's to humanize it again and to remember that everyone needs human connection and that we aren't meant to go at this life alone. I love the saying, we're all walking each other home. And, I just always remember it's like, well, if I'm just going to reach out my hand and I'm going to say, we're going to do this together and we're going to figure this out together and you don't have to do this alone. I believe that that's going to help someone say, yeah, that's worth it. The other thing I would say is that someone's meant to live the life that you want. Someone's meant to live the life that you want. So why don't you start living the life that you want and start making those decisions as small and as bite-sized as possible? And I think that's what our platform does, Carl. You don't need to start with it all at once. The mindset and the nutrition and the one thing. It's you pick one thing and you have an army of support that allows you to put your armor down. And that is, I think, the gift of this business. And this.
You're putting a group together to start June 3rd?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited.
All right.
I do them every month, Carl. I like mid-months. I'm a mid-month girl. I like starting at the mid-month. I know it's just weird, but it's just how it rolls.
It's okay. It's your thing. You're quite successful and you're teaching us all how it's done. So I sure do appreciate it. I appreciate your time today and continue to inspire us and be a leader. The leader that you are is helping us understand how we can be a change agent in the world for something that's not obvious, something that frankly the business world doesn't understand what we do. And I think many people, it's easy to judge what we do until they're part of the ecosystem. They're like, oh, my life is changing and I am in control of these choices and it's not costing me an arm and a leg. So appreciate all you do and appreciate you giving me your time here today.
Of course.
That's awesome. Well, anybody listening who's ready to start or you want to help someone else, just like Kim's talking about, you need to take action. This can be your feel-good summer. And if you want to become a partner like Kim, I think that's the way to both keep yourself accountable because now your lifestyle choices are connected to your income potential. But it's also a great way to keep yourself integrated into the lifestyle, right? When it's a business, you're going to stick with it long-term, or certainly more than maybe the yo-yo or roller coaster that you might be on with fitness and nutrition. I know I was until it became my business. And partners like Kim are building groups right now for, the next month or whenever you want to jump in. So I hope you'll find a partner. Kim's a great one, but just find someone, pick a program and make it a feel-good summer. And no matter what, here's what you need to do right now, if you would. Download the BODi app, that's BODi, or go to BODiPreviews.com. Again, that's BODiPreviews.com. And just in exchange for your email address, we'll give you lifetime access to over 130 workout videos. That's probably over $100 worth of content free at BODiPreviews.com. And then once you sample as many of them as you'd like, then you'll have a sense of the workouts that are best for you. And then you pick the program that is going to align with your goals. And then you go for it. So you can go to BODiPreviews.com, see which program speaks to you. And then when you have a great BODi experience that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. And you can submit your story to @BODiStories on Instagram, and the team will take a look. Also, last thing, if you want to get updates from me, whenever we post a new episode of the BODi Experience or we have special offers, I send out a text message. I have my own little private text community, and that's at 818-650-4369. And you just follow the prompts. I get to know you a little bit, and then I can send you information that's pertinent to you. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks to Kim Fitzpatrick and, of course, her whole family, Jamie, the kids, for helping BODi become what it is, which is a community of incredible people doing incredible things. And thank you for joining us today on the BODi Experience, and I'll see you next time.